Got this? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining. Let me just try and pin. Good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our conversation today. My name is Lucy Wanjiko Jenga. I'm the Executive Director at Positive Young Women Voices. We are joined today by three amazing people, and I'll allow them to come after me and introduce themselves. The whole reason we are having this discussion, and I believe it's really timely, it's because a few weeks, it's a few weeks on the 24th of January. There was it's like the whole world came to a halt, especially for people who are in the NGO space, people who work in HIV, TB, and malaria, and people who understand how PEPFAR has for a long time um, taken the majority of the funding landscape, and that really destabilized most people, especially with the halt and the stop work. And we were thinking, and when a person in my team asked, what does that mean for us? What will happen next? I told them that things would be okay because these things happen and they come to pass, and you barely feel them. But this one has been felt world over and has really shocked most of us. At POWV, we believe that the good work keeps going on. We believe that even even if we do not have the full picture, change is good. In as much as it's very disruptive and you do not understand it fully, we believe that change is good. So today, in as much as we will focus on some of the of the gains that have been made, reflecting on what grassroots movements are all about, exploring some strategies to ensure that there's impact with or without partners who are from outside or within. How, does that leave us when people we are hoping to support our work are no longer there? And also, just to know that we are in solidarity together. We're among other community-based organizations who are represented here by the people who are present here. How can we still drive our collective action and advocacy towards the big picture that we are working on, towards having empowered communities, towards having resilient communities, towards having a voice and a power that is ours and cannot be taken away from us. So that's the whole the whole premise for the discussion today. And the way this will work, we will have our panelists who are three responding to some few questions, and then we can have a Q&A at the end. We hope that the call can take an hour and a half. I tend to speak a lot, but I hope I will not speak a lot today. Okay, so that said, I'll call on my colleagues or the panelist of the day. I'll be the moderator for the day to introduce themselves. And I can start with you, Yvette.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvette Raphael, and I think it's almost evening in Kenya, right? My name is Yvette Raphael, and I'm the Executive Director of APA Advocates for the Prevention of HIV in Africa. And we are an advocacy organization doing advocacy around research literacy, as well as very pivotal in ensuring that choice becomes a reality for young people, but also for everyone in our country. So we are the Secretariat for the Choice Manifesto, as many of you might know. Our organization was founded in 2015, and we were very instrumental in bringing PrEP in South Africa. I think just after us, Kenya approved PrEP as well. Our interest is really ensuring that HIV prevention is a priority, but also most importantly, we are very, very interested in ensuring that young people are leaders for not only tomorrow, but that we do some kind of mentorship for young people to be able to take on the work that we've started and maybe work together. But sometimes I think young people just needs to take it. Thank you so much, Lucy, for this opportunity, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Yvette. We're happy to have you here. Uh, Ruel, over to you.
Hi everyone. Hello. My name is Ruel Lukeo. I am a young person living with HIV who's also advocating actively for HIV. Ish. I'm really sorry. I have two dogs in the house, so if there are any background noise, please bear with me. Yeah, single dog dad here. You know, yeah. But it really is amazing to be in such a conversation today and get to see that young people get to take charge of their health and well-being and get to also understand what way forward can come out of all this.
Hii kitu itakudunga.
I'm so sorry, guys. My internet did a thing. I don't know if it was everyone or just me. Okay. Ruel, did I cut you short or you were done with the introduction? So sorry, I missed most of it. My God.
To know that it's me who dropped off. I can't tell on which
And
end.
did he drop off or you had him in completion?
I think it happened for everyone. I
Okay.
am actually not sure. Yeah. So I didn't hear everything, but I heard some part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ruel, if you may, please. The spotlight loves you.
My name is Joel Okeo. I work with Y Plus Kenya. I also advocate for HIV using my social media platforms to create awareness and promote drug adherence for all people living with HIV. Thank you so much and looking forward to having this conversation and engaging with all of us and get to come up with one concrete plan that's going to shape the next steps of HIV programming. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ruel. We appreciate you for being here. Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, Yvette, or to anyone else within a different time zone. It's wonderful to be here as a panelist today. My name is Anne Mogo. I am an advocate, a feminist. I work with Positive Young Women Voices, supporting programming, communication, and advocacy. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much. And the reason why we have the three of us or the three of you as the panelists today, it's because we all bring different elements to this conversation. And I want us to start with Yvette. Yvette, you have been in the movement for some time now. And I just wanted to hear from you on what has been the process. You know, we are fairly young coming in now, and you're seeing this and you're thinking probably this is the end of the world. But for as long as I can remember being in this movement, I have heard of the funding crisis ever, and I entered the movement in 2012. So at least 12, 14 years later, I'm still hearing of the funding crisis. But organizations like Positive Young Women Voices were not there, and now they're there. But the work is still getting done. So yes, probably money is not as much as it was, but where are we coming from? How has the journey been? What are the key takeaways? What are the lessons that can be learned from how the movement has sustained itself, and the global health coming in, and social justice? Yvette?
Thank you so much, Lucian. And, you know, when we tell our history, it's important for us to remember that this movement was not given to us. We took it. And I always say to young people that if we are waiting for anything to be given to us, you are going to wait for a long time. You need to find your space, create your table, and take over. So where we come from, I will just touch a little bit on my story because that comes into where we started. So I was a young person, age 25, and I was diagnosed with HIV very early. And during that time, it was in the midst of denialism in South Africa. But many of us think the denialism was only in South Africa. The denialism took shape by many other different, in different countries, in different forms. For instance, in some of the countries, even though our governments wanted to ensure that we have ARVs and medication, they did not have the money to do so. So at that time, we did not have some countries, their governments refused them ARVs, but other countries could not afford to have it. And that is when we created the movement. I also want to say at the forefront of the movement was women using their own personal stories and circumstances to show. But within that movement was also a deep, deep movement of care because our people were dying. I don't know if any one of you are old enough to know that people were really dying. You would go today to somebody and give them food, and tomorrow they are not there. So our movement was very entrenched in care, and women took up that role, and that role was free of charge. I say many of us also need to acknowledge the fact that advocacy, activism has always been free work. We are spoiled right now with people paying for, and I don't even think people were paying for us. It's us almost saying we can do other things because we thought our movement has reached what we wanted to reach, right? So now we say we can do community engagement, we can do social mobilization. Like Roel says, I do education, I ensure young people stay on their treatment. It is us evolving, but within us was always activism and advocacy. And you can see that play out at many stages. I know you young people, you know, we make a noise. When we go to conferences, there is one, the South Africans, and two, it's just the voices of Lillian Moreko, all these women around the world. When we are together, we do make that noise for people to understand we are still here. So the movement was started and was sustained by women, mostly working for free. And the work that we done was not only to ensure that we stay alive, but we were fighting for people who did not even know we are fighting for them. And that is a major part that I see also lacking, and I'll come back to that. So we were fighting for people to get their ARVs, but then USAID and PEPFAR, they were doing the work that they are right now saying life-saving, and that is what is getting us into the problems that we are getting. USAID and PEPFAR were giving us life-saving treatment, life-saving commodities like food in our countries to ensure that we are able to, you know, just live. You know, when we look at aid was never supposed to be cute.
Oh, fuck. Sorry, say something.
Yes. So we find ourselves in spaces where aid is looking cute. Aid is going into the boardroom. Aid is now finding spaces in our organizations. And that is the level of how the aid evolved. The aid was never supposed to be luxurious. And I'm glad that you guys are recording this. It was never supposed to pay for your flights. It was never supposed to make sure you attend conferences. But as advocates, we got so used to that, and we did not see some of the things are coming. And I know Lucy knows me too well to know I would always speak truth to power in telling us, guys, something is wrong here. And when we talk about that, it was important for us to start thinking around the decolonization of the work that we do, of global health, right? The decolonization of public health and the decolonization of aid. In the recent years, have we heard conversations around how are we okay with countries only contributing 3% of their GDP to health? We were in danger. There was a meeting in Kenya where the meeting concluded about the future, but without talking about health. We know about the Abuja Declaration, but we don't know what it says, and we don't even know how to hold our leaders accountable. So importantly, it's for us to also understand that we have an important role in holding our leaders accountable. So as we talk about aid and what aid ended up paying for, we would see that we became used to this. We became used to the travel. We became used to just being props at meetings. People will ask you, do you know young people? And I would call Lucy, I know a cute young person in Kenya. She will show up and per diems, etc., etc. But the movement was not meant to do that. The aid was supposed to help us out of a situation, but then we started programming aid. I don't know if you guys understand. We programmed aid, and aid became our way of life, as well as ensuring that our governments become almost relaxed because they know, why must I do my work? Lucy is no longer fighting with me to go and to provide treatment, but Lucy is providing the treatment and she's going to the people. And our job, activism, our job is not to do the work of government. And most of the time, I look at people and I'm like, are you okay? Why are you doing the work of government? Government is supposed to do the things that healthcare is a human right. Our government are supposed to do some of the work that we are doing. We are only supposed to supplement. Wise enough, most countries, and I want to say some countries in Africa, South Africa as an example, we then said, hold up. What is happening? Where is the government's commitment to ARVs? Where is the government's commitment to HIV prevention? So our government in South Africa then shifted and said, we cannot be okay that US is providing our people with treatment. Let us rather have treatment be supplemented by government. So in South Africa, for example, a lot of our treatment is paid for by our government. In South Africa, you can walk into a clinic and you can get healthcare. Not that this is the best healthcare, but at least you will get healthcare. At least you will find your ARVs in the clinic. At least we are following the systems of the government. And our government then, when PrEP became available, I want to tell you in 2015, every single pill was paid for by PEPFAR. We cautioned our government and said that's dangerous. It is dangerous that PEPFAR is paying for every single pill of HIV prevention here. What happens if they go away? Because remember, the discussion about taking aid is not a new one. We've heard the whispers. We've seen them. However, then we realign ourselves and we answer to this. And the CLM program is a good program, However, you cannot hold somebody accountable who's paying your salary. Right? So you are just going to go there and say it's there, it's there. And I love CLM. I wish somebody else could have funded CLM, but then PEPFAR is funding CLM. We also needed to understand that as we get closer to, and the world is changing, we should have realized that our rise and our resilience is going to cause a problem. Racism does not like to see a happy Lucy, doesn't want to see a progressive Lucy, doesn't want to see some of the languages. That's why when it was banned, the first things that they did was go for the words that we are: advocacy, empowerment, women, development, all of those words that we are so passionate about. So when they cut that aid, they did nothing wrong. They're just cutting the aid and making sure they stick to their mandate, which is to look after and give Africa life-saving medications, food, water, malaria nets. All of those things is what they were supposed to stick to. And we are the ones who then, in our changes, in our languages, forced aid to become something that can be used against us, right? And now I heard tens and thousands of people losing their jobs. How? Aid was never supposed to be creating a job creation agency. It was never supposed to be that. Aid was never supposed to, we should have, even in South Africa, our biggest problem is human resources, because even though we're paying for the pills, the systems, the nurses, everybody is working for a PEPFAR program. Now we have a huge unemployment in our countries and we are wondering why. Whereas, as the movement, the work that we were doing has always been for free. Many will argue that we were not supposed to work for free. I also don't want to work for free. However, aid is not supposed to create jobs. Aid is it's something to help you. You don't have food. Now the aid is your job creation. The aid is your public health system. So now we're sitting with a quagmire, because most of us, and I'm speaking for myself, I was 25 when I was diagnosed. And guess what? My first knee-jerk reaction was, let me go join them in the streets, because here they are going to fight for me. And that time it was necessary. It was necessary for us to be on the street and to fight, because there were certain things that we were not getting. We didn't get the healthcare we deserve. We didn't get the ARVs we deserve. However, for us to evolve right now, I think this current situation we are in, Lucy, may be good for us. I'm also not letting USAID and PEPFAR off the hook, because aid comes with a condition. They told you the condition. You can't say women anymore. You can't say KPs. You can't say DEI. You can't do all of those things that are passionate about us, that we want. So the conditions are there, right? But what were the conditions before they came in here? I also want to say the way it was taken away is also illegal, because that's not how they came. They didn't come and say, oh, quick, take the, we were sitting in meetings with them. How do you want to see it? Which provinces, where, what? But because it is illegal, I don't let them off the hook. I think it's your president or your ex-president who was saying what we must do now. But he was a leader. What did he do then?
True,
He
true.
actually just enjoyed that hate took its place. So a long history of us being party to where we are. We must take responsibility because we created programs. My biggest thing, even when we talk about key populations, etc., and how we must help them, I always say, why are we programming people? Why can't we just talk about how do we change the mindsets of community? But before I take up too much time, Lucy, thanks for inviting me, and over to you.
Thank you. And I love that. We've never looked at aid that way. We've never looked at it as something that was supposed to come for a short time, cater for some things that were immediate and an emergency, and move off the way for countries to think of what it is that they want of themselves, or figure their health out, and so on and so forth. And Ruel, I know you do a lot. You do a lot of work that is unpaid. Ooh, I am not advocating for it, that's for sure. But you have sent yourself kujituma when you had no resources. And sometimes we find we start something and people pick up and they call us to meetings, and they call us to conferences that we hear now were never even supposed to be part of the aid program. But you have worked for free. So tell us why first of all you chose to do that, and where you feel we are at now, and what that means for us. Where are we as a movement? What is next for us now that we're here? Over to you.
Lucy. We have worked, I have worked for free. And I think starting off, let me just start by saying no one pays you for talking about HIV. That is one misconception that people have. Like, let me start sharing my HIV status, and then, I will get picked up by someone and then they'll start paying me. Absolutely not. When I similar to Yvette, and I joined the movement in 2020. And I think that was when we also had the ARV stockouts, and we had the whole melee around, test kits and nevirapine, it was missing literally. And I was like, yeah, I just joined the movement. I just tested positive for HIV. And then 3 months later, here I am hearing news that there are no HIV medications. So what does that mean for my health? I mean, I just started. That was a really scary experience. And I think that is what pushed me towards starting to talk about HIV and to use my voice. I had already started creating a small platform online to be able to generate and talk about, HIV, which didn't even have sense of direction. I didn't understand anything about HIV programming. All I knew is I needed to talk about we need ARV medication. The same way someone can walk into a health facility and get malaria medication or pneumonia medication. Why is HIV the exemption? So we need ARV medication for people living with HIV. And that is when and how my advocacy started. Moving forward, years later, I managed to, sharpen my skills, get to be inside rooms of, where policy changes are being made, where, stakeholders are present and getting to engage with them. And I think that's a really, really beautiful experience, and getting to create change in a small way that I can be able to do how. However, I really would want to say, like, right now things are a bit difficult, if I can put it like that. And I I might be able to ruffle so many feathers by my next
Okay.
statement.
We are not doing democracy politics here. Go ahead. Ruffle the feathers.
Feathers. But I think the space nowadays wants people who can conform to what they want. So if someone has a specific agenda that they want to pursue, they would not want a vocal young person inside that conversation, because that voice will be deemed as problematic, will be deemed as you're hard to work with. Majorly, you're talking about issues that are affecting young people. You called a young person to talk about issues affecting young people, but you're not putting into consideration what the young people are saying. So instead, the conversation or the next commemoration, you won't be there, but someone who is probably fresh, someone who is not that vocal, who probably doesn't understand how the space works, gets to be in that room, and they will just have to go with whatever the person says. And I think we are seeing less and less strong voices in the space, which it's a really sad thing, because nowadays it even gets to a point as to what Yvette has been saying, and Yvette has been talking about, tokenism of young people. I think we're going back to that era, which is a really, really devastating thing, considering the hard work that the people before us have been doing. And it's high time for us as young people to actually demand accountability, because at this point we're being used as statistics, but we're not seeing anything that's being done. And looking back at what's been happening, like from where I started and from where we are currently, I see really, really huge changes. There are changes, don't get me wrong, they're really, really positive changes. And the work that's being done by young people is immense. I'm really sorry about my dogs, if you can hear them.
No.
They're sort of like fighting. Fantastic. Young people are doing amazing work. And it's really devastating to say that most young people are not supported for the work that they're doing. Young people have taken to social media to mobilize and create movements that are championing for, social accountability, championing for change, championing advocacy in its own way. They might not know they're doing advocacy, but what they're doing is advocacy. But instead of having hands to hold them like they hold mine, then you find that the young people are being shut down, right? So there isn't much that is being done in regards to young people. I see time and time again everyone talking about, oh, we need to involve young people, we need to include young people. But I came to understand that they need young people as faces, but not as voices. And I think that is where we're going wrong, because having me in the room, I'm not going to be there as diversity hire just because of my sexual orientation and gender identity. If I have to be in the room, you have to look past my sexuality and the person I sleep with and look at what I have to bring to the table. What am I bringing to the table should be of main focus, not having me in the room because you're looking for diversity hire and say, like on the list, I am taking gender non-conforming into the participant list or something of the sort. That's not how it's supposed to be. You wanted me in the room because of what I have to offer as a young person, speaking on behalf of other young people. So why is it that my inputs will not be taken into consideration, yet the report's going to say we had diverse communities represented in the room? That's not inclusivity. That is definitely not inclusivity. And when we have to look at it from even a broader perspective, looking at global spaces, yes, you want to involve young people into this global spaces. But at the end of the day, it's not a young person who's going to pass something to go through into amendment or into implementation. It's going to be, sorry to say, someone who's young at heart. I mean, shots fired, but someone is going to be young at heart. So if we have to talk about involving young people and including young people in the fight against HIV and the space currently to where we are at, we don't need to be seen as faces only. We need to be seen as voices as well. And not just where it's okay for me to say something, but in the end product, let my inputs be recognized. You talk about working for free. Yes, I have worked for free so many times. I have worked with governments, worked with, international agencies. And what really saddens me most of the time is I don't get the recognition for the work that I put inside. Some of the things that are actually in place. I don't want to go into much detail because I'll be revealing so many things, but some of the programs that young people are currently enjoying at this point, I have been part and parcel of the whole thing, maybe from inception towards to the implementation phase. But when it comes to the end product and the end document, my name is nowhere inside those documents.
Wow. Wow.
I had countless research to put into it, but in the end, my name is not in it. And you try and follow up and have conversations, and the reason being is, you know what, we're really sorry. In the next one, we're going to involve you again. So is that really youth engagement when we have to talk about young people being in the same room? Being in the room is one thing. Acknowledging my efforts is another thing. And I think that's where we need to go. And that's where we need to put focus on. Because yeah, I will be in 100 rooms, but if my impact is not felt in even one room, then you wasted my time and I wasted your time, right? And we will keep on talking about tokenism. We'll keep on talking about being in the room, but at the end of the day, I am just there. So I'll just go there, use the Wi-Fi, take pictures in fancy hotels, post photos of me maneuvering airports around the globe. But at the end of the day, if you ask me, what do you have to show? I have nothing to show in the end. So all those times you called me, then where is the work that I have been done? Where's the work, right? If I get to see, I will understand that I did that project, I did that program, I was in that room. But if someone asks, "Where's your name?" I don't see it. I also don't see it. Yeah. Also
Thank
don't see it.
Thank you so much, Ruel. And I'll be coming back to you. I want to bring in Anne now at this point. Anne, I know you have had you have heard what Ruel and Yvette have said. And I loved what Ruel said. People have come to a point where now they are conforming to what people want to hear. So they're embellishing their words, they're embellishing their efforts to fit what they think or expect people want to hear from them. And I love that Ruel said, we don't want to be seen as faces, but be seen by our voices. And the whole mantra behind Positive Young Women Voices is that our voices matter. Where do you see us now as community-based organization in this time? Ruel has mentioned that as young people in general, we really appreciate where the efforts have come from, but we are not seeing ourselves as much as we would want to see ourselves now. Is that also the thought that comes to mind when you think of this? What do we do as a movement to push back against such decisions and decisions such as those of funding that we were not asked, that hopefully, I hope no one was engaged and said that's okay. So where does that leave us?
Thank you, Lucy. I think, first of all, I love that I am speaking after Ruel and after Yvette, because I think I agree with part of what Ruel said and part of what Yvette said. Before I answer on what we do to push back currently as community organizers or mobilizers, my very first interaction with aid, or thoughts around aid, was when I was in campus, when pursuing my degree. And I remember we were in class and we were told to decide what research project you want to work on. And this was maybe 6 or 5 years back. And I remember the conversation about foreign aid coming up. And when deciding what project I wanted to work on, I remember going to research whether Africa needs foreign aid or whether we need to cut it 5 years back. Now, I am fairly young in the space. Yvette and Ruel have probably been here longer than I am. But when it occurred to me, that means that this is not the first time that we're having this conversation around, development aid or humanitarian aid or USAID or PEPFAR or every other, donor-funded program that we are probably working in. But when I left school and I got into the work itself, something did occur to me that made me not look at the whole discussion about whether we should be having aid or whether we should not be having aid. And what I realized is that as mobilizers, as advocates, but that first and foremost, for most of us, our work is informed by the needs that we see in the community. It's not the funding that informs the work that we do. When I joined PYWV, we did not have any, structured funding. And most of us were, looking very different than we are looking right now, which is probably why Yvette was saying, I don't think aid was supposed to be luxurious, but we were looking completely different than we're looking right now. But I remember the needs were always there. In Dandora, like the community we work with, the needs were always there for young women living with HIV, for young survivors of gender-based violence. Those needs were always there. And what pushed most of us is that we felt there is something that we have to do about this. Now, your whole history, Lucy, and the founding of PYWV, it's because you went through and you some things and you felt that now you have to come in so that somebody else is not suffering. And so for me, that is where I see ourselves at this particular moment. Needs are still there. Needs will continue being there. And this has always been what has informed our work, not funding. Now, funding is important because it helps us do our work at scale. It helps us reach more people than we would have probably reached before. But then as long as people need us to come into, to get into the gap that the government is not working on, like Yvette was saying, then the work has to continue and the work will continue. Now, I also look at this because I have worked at the community level, at the national level, and even at the international level. But I do feel that change happens within the communities that we serve. Now, if in all these donor-funded programs, PEPFAR, USAID, and many, many, many others, if the work is not being felt in the community, then you're about to get backlash. And this backlash is going to come from people who do not probably understand the intricacies of this work itself. People who think they have the whole picture or information on the internet. They're the ones who will be there, first of all, to say, you know what, scrap it all. We don't want to hear any more PEPFAR or USAID, because it's coming from a place of, first of all, not knowing, but also acknowledging that sometimes this work has become very luxurious and, has lost touch with what it's supposed to be doing. And also the government is kept getting us for us to be here, such that they are not funding the 3% that Yvette was speaking about, such that our whole health systems are, dependent on these donor countries. So, as I may mention, Yvette said that, aid is not supposed to be luxurious, and I want to say aid is not free. Like, contrary to what everyone thinks, aid is never free. Like USAID, UK aid, and every other donor, by the time they bring you money to do something, they are not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. It's because they have something that they are pushing. And so when I said change happens at the community, and when I said that the agenda is set by the needs that people are going through, then that gives me hope that this is not going to stop the work, because the needs is still there. And as communities, we'll keep setting the agenda. If we have to, to respond to new HIV cases every other day, then the agenda will keep being set by communities. And now donors, because they're not doing this for free, they will pivot. Right now, it's just people doing political tantrums, wanting to seem important. And no, there is a lot of problems with this whole system, and we will be the first to acknowledge it. But we will have to continue with this work. Now, coming to speak about what Ruel was saying, doing it for free, where do we keep doing this as young people, as young, advocates? I will say I am the first person who says don't work for free. But then that is in an ideal world. Sometimes we do not exist in an ideal world. It doesn't mean we will not respond to, GB, we will not help, survivors of violence, we will not be engaging with young people living with HIV because we are not being paid. When you are led by what you want to actually, respond to, where this work comes from the heart, you will keep working. But then we don't have to be complacent. You know what? let's just leave PEPFAR alone. Let's just leave USAID alone, because then we are putting them in this pedestal as if they were doing this work out of the goodness of their heart. But that's not the case. Again, they are gaining more than probably people are gaining in these particular countries. Then that and then we have to come from a place that is codependent on it to another. Yes, Lucy, thank you.
So sorry, it's because we had lost you. It's not that I was saying you end talking. Your internet is shaking.
Okay, I thought I was speaking too much anyway.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I hope that your train
Yeah,
of
yeah. So for me, it's just, a balancing act. And so when you ask me what we have to do, to counter all this, I think first of all, we have to sustain our advocacy. And this is advocacy in two forms. Advocacy to our governments, first of all, to fill this gap, to not be complacent anymore. Because, we cannot rely on aid forever. No one would give their money forever for something, whether it benefits them or not. So our governments actually have to fill this gap. And how we do this is by holding them accountable. The other advocacy we have to keep doing is advocacy against anti-rights. Because I promise you, with Trump and Musk and the whole conservative movement that is coming out of this whole debacle, it's not that it's about money for them. It's about pushing back the gains that we have made as communities, as advocates for, inclusion, the gains that we have made for LGBTQ recognition and inclusion as well, diversities in the workplaces and all. So we have also to sustain that advocacy against these anti-right movements, because they are feeling emboldened right now, and they are here because they have realized that we are pushing the agenda. We are making people to think differently. And so now we have to push against this anti-rights movement. We don't have a choice. Whether we have the funding for it or whether we don't have the money for it, the work has to continue and will continue like it was continuing before that, before we had the donor funds as well. And then finally, how we push back is by letting communities be the ones to tell the story. Sometimes we people who are working in this space can speak to ourselves. Like we become the faces of this work. With the many flights that you're taking here and there, with the conferences that I think we talk to ourselves so much, and there are so many conferences that we have to cut down. But we have to let the communities that we are serving, the marginalized people, be the one to do the work and to be the face of this work. Because then people just see luxury. People see aid has become luxurious. And so we have to let the communities be the ones that are telling this work. They're the ones telling the story. They're the face out there. Then that is how we push back. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. And now I want to bring everyone back. And I can start with you, Yvette. Anne has really segued us so well into this. We need to hold our governments accountable. We need to keep pushing back, especially with the anti-right movements. We need to let communities tell their stories. Yvette, what do you now think are the alternative financial models? Okay, let me mute Gladwell. Thank you for joining. What do you think are these now alternative financial models or strategies that we can look up to, to maintain us for the long-term impact? We want to be here for the long haul. We want my daughter, who is now 9, and I know you can see her finger coming through the screen. What will she talk about in 20 years from now? Will there be a movement for her to come into? So for us to sustain that movement with limited or up to no funding, how do we now go back into our countries, into the partners we've made who do not have all these conditions, or who have conditions but are for community? How do we go back to, thinking of alternative financial models? What does financing for the movement look like? And I'm coming to you because you said aid was never meant to do the things that it's doing now. But before even aid, what were these things that we were doing that can be replicated or taken upon now that we're here? Over to you, Yvette.
Thank you so much, Lucy, and my apologies for cutting off earlier. I'm in transit. Um, what what we need to understand is we are in a position currently to help ourselves. However, we don't want to recognize that, right? We need to start looking at the very rich in Africa, in our countries, to hold them accountable to fund some of the things that we are doing. They have a responsibility, right, to get to these things. Secondly, our governments must take up the baton. But I am also saying, I will not trust you if you get funding from government for advocacy. What are you advocating for? How are you going to hold them accountable? So our movement needs to be supported. Lastly, because I want to hear from young people as well, is the fem, and I want young people to hear the fempreneurship in our countries needs to be supported, right? Lucy, you know, for instance, I will not see you and not buy a book or books because I can use it, I can give it away. You will not pass Aussie without buying it. We need to start sustaining ourselves and creating our own millionaires so that we can look after our communities. However, we find it very difficult. Most of our communities are still stuck in mental slavery where we think something is only good if it's good because it comes from a certain color of the skin, right? Lucy writes a book. It's not becoming a bestseller. Fauci just drops the pen and his book is a bestseller, right? We don't see our own things as valuable as valued. We talk about creating, you know, Africa making its own medicines, its own testing stuff, but we will not do it on these trips that are paid for by aid. We are going to go to New York and we are going to come back with 1,000 Brufens. But in Kenya, there is painkillers. You leave them there because you don't trust them. So it's important for Africa to, the mindset needs to be freed. We need to look at aid differently. We need to ask the rich billionaires that we've made, because we make them, to say, what is your social responsibility? And we also need to hold ourselves accountable. So our governments must step up, our rich people.
Oh God, I keep doing that. I'm so sorry, Yvette. I was trying to meet someone else.
Okay, not a problem. Dangote from Nigeria is supposed to be the biggest funder of HIV and AIDS or aid, but we don't hold them accountable. So the rich people, but we also need to create new rich people, new brands, new things that can sustain and support the work that we do. I mean, yeah, I can go on and on, but if we want to decolonize public health, decolonize aid, we must know we have the resources. How many people are in Kenya? But they would rather buy from another, well-known brand like Louis Vuitton, 15,000. But when they come to buy Lucy's book, they want a discount.
Mm.
We must stop. We are now the problem. Elon Musk and Donald Trump is showing us they are taking care of white people. White people in South Africa did not even call them over the weekend, but they said, come. Even the Mexicans in the US were shocked that, are we not getting rid of immigrants? Now, why are you bringing refugees? We need to think smarter. Decolonization must really mean decolonization. And we have a responsibility to work with our communities to see what we are about and the value of
investing in African produced anything. I'm just worried that right now, USAID can take their money away. Somebody in CDC, Africa CDC can say, okay, let's manufacture ARVs in Kenya. The Kenyans are not going to drink the ARV. Tell me I'm lying. I know for sure. In South Africa, at least we are drinking our own medication, right? And I still say again, we must not programatize this work. This work does not need a program. Thank you so much, Lucy. I'll listen in.
Thank you, Yvette. Ruel, what are your thoughts? I see you smiling through and through. What is coming to mind? What is the new funding landscape looking like for us as young people, as young advocates, as community organizations, as young community organizations? Yeah, it might feel scary because we found people doing this, having money and doing things because of the money that they have. But now, what are we saying? What are we telling ourselves?
I think, yeah, change is really scary. Change is very scary. Even I, having this conversation right now, I don't know about the future. But yes, we need to think about this from a really different point of view. And when we have to put about real life experiences, of course, it's real life, but on a personal level, if you have a job, we all understand. Maybe means of. So I am thinking that let's not point our fingers to our government, right? We have all these budgets that we're putting out. We have these high taxations that are coming in. I really want to know where my taxes are going. If you have to slice half of my salary, I need to know where my taxes are going. And if you can't be able to provide for, healthcare, because healthcare is a necessity by the Constitution, healthcare is a necessity, but healthcare has been neglected. So where are my taxes going to, right? If we can't be able to afford ARV medications and maybe generate our own. I was having this conversation and folks were saying in Swahili, I'm really sorry, I'm gonna say this in Swahili, but I'll translate. Tukiamua kutengeneza dawa zetu za ARV tutakuwa Panadol. That truth, that truth. So majorly what
people want to take our meds if we make them ourselves.
Because we don't, right? We trust someone else. We trust a white savior. We trust anything else except our government. But yet our government is taxing us heavily. Where are our why can't we get medication? Why can't we get healthcare? Right? And yet they're still running for office, they're still campaigning, right? It is us as people, because we put them in power without accountability measures, right? The landscape is really scary because murder can happen if you have to speak out about these things. But let's again remember that we're also enjoying independence because some people choose to lose their lives for us to be able to enjoy our independence. It's high time we start putting these people on the spot and actually understand that you sitting there, you're representing an entire community whose life actually depends on you being in that seat. Right now, people living with HIV are at a point where there's uncertainty about whether or not they will get their medications or not, right? So what is that person who's representing you in parliament doing about it? Right? If they're having luxury cars and buying luxury homes outside, is that your tax money that's going to buy those things? If it is your tax money, then you should not be seated in your house. I'm not pushing for violence, but I'm just calling for us to be able to do things in the right way and call for accountability. Because in my head, the only thing that sticks right now is let our taxes start working for us. If they want to tax us as the people in the West are being taxed, then let our healthcare systems be as it is in the West. Let I not be able to walk into a health facility and I'm given 1 week of medication. And then the next week, I don't even get the medication itself, right? a salary increase. It doesn't make sense. We as young people can use the platforms we've had. We've seen what social change can happen and movements that can happen when we take to the media and when we approach these things, right? There is a doubt that the downside of it, we've all experienced it, we've all seen it on national TV, but let's also focus that this, we're doing it for the greater good. It's because we're actually trying to create change. We can't allow things to go back to the way they were because things will never go back to the way they were. COVID changed everything. This meeting could have been physical if COVID never happened because we wouldn't understand about online meetings without COVID. So let's now also understand that with this funding, one day they will actually say we're cutting all funds completely and entirely. What will your government do? What will the CSOs do about it when that time comes? And when we look at scenario building, that's not a scenario that's far away from actually happening, right? So by improving our own income resources locally, by pushing our government to utilize our taxes effectively and channeling much of those taxes into health, we're pushing towards, social accountability, towards political accountability, towards, me as a person, I am pushing towards my health. I as well, I don't know about if my medication ends today, if I'll be able to get medication tomorrow. I am pushing for my health, right? It's not a CSO thing. It's not it's a them thing. Nah, it's about all of us pushing together and actually letting our money work for us this time. Because if we just sit and say someone else is going to do it, at the end of the day, we will have to go back and start begging, which is what is currently happening. And that's a really sad state of affairs. So apart from targeting and looking at the taxes, let's also think about yes, generating also the medication on our own, right? We have scientists, we have, labor which is going to the West because it pays better. How about we actually utilize in-house labor, use as scientists? They spent 7 years in med school. I mean, you can't 7 years in med school, plus a few more others in training and whatnot. Our doctors are incapable of creating ARV medications. Our doctors are very able and are very capable of doing that. Let's utilize the manpower that we have and the resources that we have within our own medical systems to ensure quality control is effective. We're not getting Panadols instead of ARV medications. We're getting actual medications, right? If we have to get, because currently, we have different regimens, we have DTG, we have, TLD and all that. There's Biktarvy, which is like the OG of ARV medications. Why can't we also create our own Biktarvy so that also other countries can be able to take it from us? That is already earning money on its own way. But you know what? Yeah, our government. Yeah. So I think for those two, by having our own ARV medications, which we can be able to also sell to other countries in need, is not only building partnerships with these other countries, but it's also sustaining our country in its own way. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruel, for that. I agree totally. So far we have government should pay for our health. They are taxing us enough, and I saw Shilet saying even if I'm not earning even if I'm not earning a salary and they're not taxing that salary, they are taxing other things outside the salary. And we need to see, I love that, Ruel. We need to see where this tax is going. We need a breakdown of where my taxes go to. What exactly is being done with the taxes that we've been paying endlessly, and they are not cheap, and we are raising them on a daily. So we need to know where this is going, and we need to have a set budget for health. The government needs to fund its people's health. And I love that we will be going into this now, not thinking of, I'm doing this because I'm civil society. I'm doing this because there's there's a token attached to it. I'm doing this because I'm fighting for my life, and my life without medication, I don't have a life. So I really love that. And also utilizing the talents and the resources that we have in the country, and also even within the region. Africa is not poor. Africa is not we don't have poor countries here. We just have a poor way of utilizing the resources that we have towards what is important. We also we don't utilize people the way we should. And it's not because we can't manufacture ARVs in the country. We can't. Someone already did, and they did not pay this man. I don't remember his name, but they manufactured for medication for around $1 billion, and they were never paid. And without being paid, that means that company is likely to fall. That company is likely to close down. So even if we are saying we might get Panadol, it's not because we don't have talents and we don't have resources for us to create what is needed. We just don't value our people enough. And I love that Yvette mentioned that we need to value our own. We need to value the things we do. We need to value the talent we have and the resources we have within the country, and even value ourselves and what we bring on the table. We are not in this space, and even though we find ourselves going to these meetings and going to these conferences where it now looks like it has become luxurious, we did not get there just because. We got there because we have something of value to give. So being cognizant of the value that we are and the value that we add and the value that we can bring is very important for us to push forward. With that, Anne, what else do you think we need to do? And I know you've said you've been here with PRWV even before we had any funding coming in, and would scout and we would use our own money and we would knock on doors. I remember I used to budget for something like 10,000 and really stretch that penny to make it work, to keep on going, doing the amazing work. And even now, I think we are the least resourced organization, but we really stretch every penny. So even without that, what do you think the future looks like for us and other community-based organizations that are in the call today?
First of all, I think in a functional society or in a functional country, you and I, all our space would not exist. And this is not to mean that, people living with HIV would not exist. It's just that this work through the NGO space would not exist because we come in because the government is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's not filling that gap that it has left. Yesterday, I think our cabinet in Kenya approved the next year's budget, 2025 and all. And there was about 3 trillion going to recurrent expenditure. And that is what pays for salaries and everything else that our government does that is so good at wasting money. But the development one was about 750 billion. That is way, way less than what a government should be spending on. And that means then they are still coming from a place where they feel they are these development partners, they are these donors who are going to come in and fill, particularly in health, because I think that is what takes the majority of the budget that comes from these donor countries. And so I think what we have to continuously do, what this looks like for us in the next few years, I don't know, in the future, is us continuously holding our government accountable, as Rowell was saying. We need to see where our money is going. We need to see a government that is coming to do what it's supposed to be doing, not like relying on others. Because again, if we keep relying, then we are just going to get to a place where 50 years from now, we're still having this conversation because it started way, way, way back. 25 years ago, people are still talking about aid. And we'll just get stuck in this cycle. So I think for me, first and foremost, we have to now push our governments, as African governments, to come and fill this gap and not to be reliant anymore. Again, when we don't budget, is when now we start wanting to go to other countries that look functional, and then we are paying for visas, they're being denied, and then we can go, but we still have given that money, and then these donors take that money and they bring it back and they call it aid, but then it came from where it just came from us. And the reason as to why we are trying to leave these shitholes is because our governments have become complacent, and ourselves as well. So we have to get to a point where we are now fixing the mess that we are in on our own, on ourselves, because these people will not be here forever, and we do not want them to be here forever. They say that we shouldn't exist as an industry, if I can say NGO industry, we shouldn't exist, because then that means the work that we are doing is not really moving as far or making change as much as we would do. But then what does our future look like as community-based organizations? I think, again, we'll continue doing the work. Whether we crowdsource, whether we give the funds ourselves, as long as the need is there, the work will continue. So I don't know where we'll be next year or what. I don't know where our funding is going to come from. I don't know whether we'll still have jobs in 2 or 3 years or even months. Some of us have actually lost them. But I do know that the work would continue and it has to continue. So I don't know how, Rosie. I do not have an answer, but I do know it's going to continue. Yeah,
That is the
thank you.
answer, and that is the answer, is that we will be here. We will not die and we will not stop. That is something we are agreeing on. And we have governments, despite the countries you're coming from here, that need to be held accountable. And in whichever way we can hold them accountable, let us do that. Let us make sure that they are not just resting and enjoying these taxes that we've been paying. So what I see now is that funding will be different. Funding will come from sources you never thought before. Funding will probably come from the mama mboga in your community. You never thought that was a possibility, but it is. If you tell her, you giving 10 shillings in a month will probably make sure that a student stays in school, or it will make sure that a girl has sanitary towels, or it will make sure that someone has medication. It will make sure that this community keeps going to where it's supposed to go. If today we were told we are making this road, or we are building, or we want to fund ARV's production, and everyone gives 10 shillings, I don't think we would lack at least 1 million fundraised within the first hour. We saw that with the Gen Z movement. We saw when they went to the street and they needed medication, and they needed assistance with health, and they needed medical bills paid. People give, I think, 4 million in an hour. So when yes, when people know where money is going and know that you're not taking their money to go to a conference, you're not taking their money to look pretty, to drive a car. We know, like, these people, these government officials we elected are doing that with our money. If they know that there's no that you're not taking advantage of them, they will fund the things that we need. So funding landscape will look very different, and we'll learn as we go. The same way we learned to write proposals. We were not always very good at writing proposals, but we learned and we wrote those good proposals. So how will proposals look like if you're going to the wholesale shop near you? Proposals will look very different. It will probably be word of mouth. It will probably be coming back and reporting, this is what your money did. And that is what we're asking of our government. So we have fixing our messes is first holding this government accountable, that's for sure. Advocacy is very different right now. Advocacy will not remain the same, because then we won't be lobbying these government officials, bringing them to a hotel and paying them huge per diems and doing 1-day meetings, but they were supposed to be they have signed for 3-day meetings, and hoping that, oh, the Lord will touch them, that they do not change certain policy, or they do not go against a certain policy. So things will be different, in as much as this is scary, in as much as there are people who have lost their jobs. We are seeing a change, and change is good. Even if it comes with all these growing pains, change is good, and we'll figure it out. We always do. I think for me, the intention for this conversation was people to leave here knowing that it's scary, it feels scary, but change is good. And you don't stay the same place you were after change happens. So thank you so much, Ruel, Anne, and Yvette in absentia. I would like to bring the rest of the people who have been listening to us for the last 1 hour, 15 minutes. If you have any question, please raise your hand. If you have a comment, please raise your hand, or probably leave it in the comment section and I will read it out. So if you have any question, please let us know. I see Farai, who I saw was from Zimbabwe, is saying that he totally agrees, or she, I'm sorry, I don't know, with the powerful presenters. Let's push and change the narrative of how aid is now viewed, decolonize the mind, and go to the activism as clearly outlined by vet and presenters. Let's do away with cartels within the donor community who have cultivated the culture of complying. That was so very well summed, Farai. Thank you so much. Josephat is saying, I agree with you. If we hold our governments accountable, we'll be moving towards the right direction. We have relaxed so much that the government is taking advantage of our comfort. I could not agree more. And if you're going to kill people, you can't kill the whole entire country. So if we have enough people coming to the streets, talking truth to power, you can't kill everyone. Obed, I see your mic is on. You want to come in?
Well, I know my network is having some issues, the network, but I totally agree with what is being said here. And if I was to say anything, I think we just need to strengthen some of maybe some of our projects and come up with different strategies and mitigation strategies so that they can be able to cushion some of our projects moving forward. And one of the things that I personally would suggest is strengthening the digital marketing so we can find more support and also just be more visible. So that, and also diversify our funding sources. Say maybe if we were a certain organization was just relying on maybe the USAID or just from funding from the US. Maybe it's about time to look into, as you said, and as also Yvette said, look into now Africa, look back home. What can we do back here now that this is happening? And I think this is a conversation that's long overdue. And it's happened right now, but I think this is something that conversation that should have started a long time ago, so that even if I personally I am trying to set up an organization, to be able to look at the future of this organization and also look at in case anything happens, what are the mitigation strategies, what can I do to do better. So yeah, so I'm sorry for that, but yeah, I was gonna say something later, but yeah, my network messed it up.
No, it's okay, Obed. That is very well taken, and I agree with you totally. Diversifying our funding should have come a long time ago, but I think we waited too long. And for me, to be honest, I used to be very angry when people would say, look for sustainable models of funding. And I used to wonder, does this sustainability just occur or happen to us as CBOs? How is our government even showing us how sustainability is done when you are giving only 3% of your money to health? What is that? 50% should actually even go to health, if you are being honest, because a healthy nation is a thriving nation. And the other day, my domestic manager wanted to go to the hospital, and I asked. She was asking for a facility, the Kanjo facilities. If you're Kenyan, you understand what Kanjo facility is. It's supposed to be free. And the last time she went to a free clinic, she was told she had kidney problems without any testing, without anything, and was prescribed medication. She did not have any issues with her kidneys. So even the health that we have now is not working. Leave alone HIV, leave alone everything else. And integrating HIV, TB, and malaria, and all the other NCDs that we are seeing, non-communicable diseases that are being integrated into the system. already we have a crippled system, health system completely. So adding more to it will only complicate things further. So really we have to hold our governments accountable. I saw earlier, Ellie, I saw your mic on. Did you want to come in?
Lucy, I want to greet you, all of you. I've never talked to you today. May I say hi?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm also doing very well. Thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation.
You're welcome.
So Elia is
Thank you.
part of a network called Stream Network that PYWV is the secretariat to. So we are really excited that you were able to join us. Shilette is saying, today I was lucky to be involved in a conversation with, I think you meant to say HIV positive people. And I think for the leaders to see this matter in a different way, it should also start with us showing love and support to those who are living with HIV, because we are they are also perfect like us. Okay, I think that marks the end of the conversation. Anne and Ruel, anything as we close, anything you want to leave people with?
I think for me, from a foreign policy kind of nerd point of view, also even as we readjust to completely different strategies, I also do know that somebody will also come and fill the gap. Not to say that we should be comfortable and now take these whole other maybe countries to do, but I do know somebody will come and see, because for them it's not really about aid. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Ruel?
Two things. One is something to think about, and we always want the West to fund us. Question is, who funds the West? The systems are functional. Who funds the West? Right. And another thing is, during this uncertain times, I would wish for us to advocate for kindness, because I see a lot of hate for people living with HIV currently, and how at this point stigma is still very rampant. And you just see the comments online, and it's really, really disheartening to see what's going on and what's happening. So I call on to everyone to spread kindness and reach out. If you know someone who's living with HIV during this current time, reach out to them, get to understand, are they accessing medication? How's their mental health? How are they fair? You might not have anything to offer them, but you might find a solution along the way. So do reach out, spread kindness, report pages that are too graphical, especially if they're targeting you as a person living with HIV, and be an ally if you're a person who's not living with HIV, and show us support during this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruel. Thank you so much, Anne. I agree with you. It's the time to show kindness. It's the time to give people hope. And there's a young woman who reached out, and I've known her since she was diagnosed. I think it's now 6, 7 years. And she was asking, what will happen to us now, Lucy? What do we do now? Because the information that is going out to people is that we are finished, and we are not. And if we have had this conversation, there's something you can also do within your own network, within your own community, within your own group of friends. Make sure that you are having these conversations with people so that people know, give the right information, because now there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. So be the person who people can look at as the light, to give them information, to give them hope, to give them the right information, and to make them see that this is not the end. It's just we're at a point of growth, and these are just growing pains, and we'll be okay. We'll get to the other side and see that different world that we are envisioning for ourselves. Now we are the We are the ones who will be called 20 years from now to conversations like this and asked, what did you do during that time? The great
Hopefully
exodus.
not, because maybe hopefully they will not
They
be
will ask.
dependent on it.
No, they will ask, what did you do during the great exodus? Because there'll be another exodus during that time. And I know it's not the first time. There have been things that have happened before, that really shook the world. And we are now the ancestors of, so let's create those systems where they will not need NGO, they will not need aid. And if aid is coming, then it's coming from sources that were never thought. They will find a government that works, and that will be our legacy, to be something we can, hold up into light and be very happy that we were here to see that change. So I leave you with that. Be well, be good. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.